Hello, everyone. This is the mini lecture for Ms. Montgomery's classes to substitute for our February 3rd meetings. And what we will be looking at is Edith Wharton's Roman Fever and Guy de Maupassant's The Jewelry, two of the short stories you've read recently. And Guy de Maupassant, as we have discussed, was really one of the popularizers of the surprise ending stories that we have seen that were so popular in the turn of the 19th and 20th century. Short stories of Kate Chopin, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, Faulkner in his way, Poe in his way. And for Maupassant, it was really a twist. And there's often a moral lesson, but it's not necessarily moralizing. We wouldn't necessarily put these alongside children's fairy tales, or we wouldn't necessarily put them alongside Aesop's fables to say that they are supporting one particular kind of lesson, but that the lesson is there and maybe some social commentary is there as well. And I want you to take a moment, just review your impressions of how Chopin used the surprise ending, how Gilman used the surprise ending, how Faulkner and Poe did that in very different ways, but certainly to make different kinds of comments and to tell different kinds of stories to fulfill the needs of different kinds of genres. So in The Jewelry, if you've looked at the online links to texts, you've seen that one of the other translations of the original French title is The False Gems, which I think maybe front loads some of what is in the story a little bit, but they certainly both work, and I'd like you to think about which title you prefer and why, and which maybe would have helped you or gotten in your way more as a reader. And I want to ask some similar questions to get you thinking and encourage you to take some notes as you go through this. Take down your impressions, compare them to annotations you might have already done in the text, and then use those to complete the assignment at the end. So think about also when and how you knew something was not what it seemed. And when and how did you guess that? So there's the sort of time in the text, and then there's your experience as a reader. What response did you have that let you know we were being led towards some kind of appearance reality reversal happening? And then if you did, when as a reader going through the first time did you figure out what the protagonist's wife might have really done? Or did it take you some time? And what did you make of that? Did being able to figure it out let you concentrate more on other elements of the story, or did it kind of take you out of the story? And finally then, think about how Maupassant foreshadows and delivers his surprise. And as I indicated in the earlier slide, I want you to think of that from a technical standpoint. What does he do? What kind of details? What kind of language? What kind of sentence structures? What kinds of sequence of revealing different details is he using? And then what about the more evaluative part of it? What comment does he seem to be making? Who seems to be getting a lesson here, and who maybe is played for the fool, and who wins if anybody wins, and is there any kind of message we can take away for our own use, or is there any mocking, gentle or otherwise, of messages that we might take away for our own use? And then we have another similar era American writer this time, Edith Wharton, and she's also writing a surprise ending story, but doing it yet again differently from the other writers we have seen. And Edith Wharton is probably more famous for her novels. She wrote novels like The House of Mirth and The Age of Innocence that have been made into relatively popular films even in the last 20 years, so she still has that kind of cultural presence. And really, her work, again, was that category of novels of manners, works that are just as much about social norms, social mores, as they are about whatever the plot is. And much like we saw James Joyce do with Dublin, Edith Wharton is really making New York a character. You get details down to the level of addresses and what somebody's curtains look like, and that is certainly not accidental. She's really giving you that sense of New York as a kind of character, as a kind of motivator and backdrop for what our characters do. And then certainly the rules of society as a character. Think of how the central liaison at the middle of this thing is not what gets the most description, is not what gets the attention that we might expect as modern readers or television viewers, but it's all the customs of letter writing and RSVPing that circle around that really kind of peel back the layers and reveal what has happened. And who knows that our characters aren't perhaps just as shocked by some of the breaches of protocol as they are by the much more consequential secret at the heart of the story. And I want to ask you to contemplate, brainstorm, take some notes over similar questions as I asked you to look at for Maupassant. What are the connotations of that title, Roman fever? We tend to use fever to mean interest. You know, someone's developed a fever for something they're collecting or a television show they're interested in or who knows what. But then there are some other connotations, actual sickness, actually kind of being driven from your senses, and we get actual sickness in the text, and we get characters acting in ways they probably wouldn't act if they were at home. And why is some of that put off onto Rome or being away from home, being out of your normal surroundings? And think again about some of the social information the text gives us. We've talked about some address and household things, those class markers that way. We've talked about customs surrounding invitations and social encounters. Think about some of the information otherwise that you get in the text, how the hotel is described, how the food and drink are described, how their leisure activities are described, how even personalities and appearances are described, and how that plays back into the overall social picture that Wharton is painting and what she's doing with that. And then same questions for the central plot as it reveals itself, the central secret. When and how, as a reader, did you suspect that something was going on behind the scenes? There's actually one hint that's dropped quite early on in the text. And did you predict the ending and all? And if you did, how did you come to do that? And then look, as you did with Maupassant, at the techniques Wharton uses to foreshadow, and again, look at how she sequences details, what she does with pacing, what she does with character blocking, all of those kind of technical things, but then also look at what kind of statements she might be making, what she might be doing with us as readers, where she might be pointing our attention, and what conclusions, if any, and what social applications, if any, she wants us to draw from that. And then based on your notes here, and by all means go back through the presentation, you can pause it at various times if you want to take more notes, do some more brainstorming. To do the double quiz assignment, you'll go into the course Blackboard site. You will click on the very imaginatively named buttons here. I've added a content area in the set of buttons down the left side of the screen called February 3rd, 2014. And then underneath that content area, there's a discussion board. You'll follow the instructions there. It'll be a comparative prompt. And you will have two quizzes, as we talked about. So your first quiz will be your first prompt, your initial post, that you'll see the instructions for that. And then your second quiz will be a response to a classmate, and we'll see the instructions for that. So you have until Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. to do this. You want it to be done before we meet again for class. And obviously you want others to be able to get full credit. You want people to have things to respond to. So it's probably best not to wait until Tuesday at 11 p.m. to begin working on this. But between now and then, you have plenty of time to do that. And I look forward to seeing everyone back in class on Wednesday.